Hello and welcome back to That Writer Guy podcast. I am your host, Lyman, and in this episode, I'm going to be discussing things you should avoid when first publishing. This is information that many authors who are already published wish they had known, and that is why I'm bringing this to you now. The hard work of coming up with the idea, the writing, if you have possible writer's block, writing some more, deleting a bunch, only to wish you hadn't and write it all again, then having your first draft is something many know too well. Then you go from the first draft to edits, then more editing, polishing, looking for an editor now that you've done your initial edits, getting the edits back, going over them, then you move on to cover design, back book, blurb, all of that stuff. Whew. That's a lot of things to do when it comes to writing a book, right? Well, the thing is we put all that time into making a book, and now we want to publish it. But when it comes to publishing, there are many things we just don't do or do that we wish we could redo. Now, with traditional publishing, there are a few things that can be avoided when it comes to this route. I do want to say that I am going to be a traditionally published author. Wizards of War is going to be coming out in May from Water Tower Hill Publishing, who is going to be on the podcast very soon. And I'm excited for that. But the thing is, with traditionally published books, one thing to avoid is to send out query letters in the manuscript without really seeing where we're sending our precious book. The other thing is are they actually accepting manuscript submissions? Instead of doing this, research a bit to find out what traditional publishers are in the genre you write, and once you have this information, then research which of those are actually accepting submissions and manuscripts. When you have this information, now you can move into the third part, which is reading how to properly submit your manuscript for consideration. Every publisher will have a specific guideline regarding submissions for consideration, and you have to be able to abide by these guidelines. I can tell you that in talking to a few publishers who I know, the one biggest thing and fastest way to get rejected is to not follow the simple guidelines they have for manuscripts and authors. Outside of these, we will be mostly geared towards the self-published book and self-published author, as self-publishing is something that is widely used and most common these days. I am a self-published author with my initial series, Ghost 1, so I do have nearly all control of everything that I do. It is something that I personally enjoy and want to do. But that doesn't mean that traditional publishing isn't something that should be not considered. If you want full control over everything, then self-publishing is where it's at. If you want to have some control, but you want the traditional publisher to have some control as well, that can be from the editing process to marketing and promotion. Things will be hand in hand together when it comes to traditional publishing, and I will talk about traditional publishing in another episode. But for the foreseeable future here, everything is going to be talked about self-publishing, and that is where I'm going to start with. Here are some things I wish I had known before self-publishing my first book. Don't rush. Now that you have your first draft done, you have to get it ready to go, and now you need to go about seeing in your hand what to do and when to do it next. It's an exhilarating feeling when you write your book and get it completely done. But when it comes to everything, don't rush to get it published. Yes, it may be your first book, and it might be super excited to go ahead and get it published so you can see it in a physical copy form. But if it's your first draft, it is a long way from being truly ready to publish. This is something that I made a mistake with my very first book I published. I had the first draft finished, I was super stoked, and I did 2 rounds of self-edits. I created a cover of my own, and unless you're truly talented in this area, which I am not, I don't recommend doing this. I beg of you never to do this unless you really are somebody that's capable Just don't do it if you're not. Trust me, it looked horrible. And I felt that my book blurb and everything was ready for the world to see. I found out that about CreateSpace, which is now Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP for short, and I thought, all right, I can make this happen. I went through all of their steps and then had to wait for everything to be approved. Pretty painless process, really, but the necessary. And then when it said everything was good to go, I hit that magical button that said publish. And there it was. Within 72 hours, the book would be live and I would be an officially published author. But I found through reviews that I was not anywhere ready to have that thing go live for others to read. I took the book down, did some major work on it to include having a professional cover made, edited it, then put it back up for a much better response. Honestly, I still think I need to take it back down once again and have an editor go through it, because guess what? Having an editor go through my book is still something that I regret not doing. But just because you have something that you are wanting the world to see, don't rush putting it out there. Take the time to make it truly the best it can be, and then see about publishing it. The next thing is not marketing. If you want the world to discover your book without you having to do anything to make that happen, I have some bad news for you. The probability of that happening is less than being struck by lightning or winning the lottery. You are in a new world, and this world has between 600,000 and 1 million books published every single year. You have to work hard to get people to notice your book, and that's where the marketing comes into play. I'll be honest, I am not the best when it comes to marketing, so I've had to learn more and more about it and find ways to make it work for me so I can get people to see and read my books. If you are publishing your book, you can start even before it's released in your marketing strategies and build up anticipation for your book when it does release. If you don't do any of that, your book will be lost in the sea of books, and your goal is to just publish the book just to publish it, then consider that goal met. But for the majority of authors, they would love to see some kind of return for the time and energy spent writing the book. The next one is wrong price. I'll fully admit I am a victim of this. And when I had my first book published, I was excited and then started thinking, how can I make money off of this? As I'm just sure it'll be the next best-selling, high-suspense, military action thriller that makes me groan when I actually think about that. But, so, I went against what I was told, and also what was suggested, and priced the ebook at $5.99, and I decided to just put the paperback book at $19.99. So imagine my surprise when I sold nothing, making absolute zero in sales and anything when it came to making money. I sold 0 books. I couldn't figure it out. I had the next bestseller, I was sure of it, but then I actually took the time to listen to what others had told me, and I changed the price from $5.99 to $2.99 for the Kindle book, and I changed the price from $19.99 for the Kindle book down to $9.99 because I was looking at the length of the book and other books in the genre, and ironically it began to sell. I learned that day that listening to those who have gone before me, that information is pretty valuable. Now, the next one is giving up. All right, so you've written your first book, you've gone through everything, you're excited for it, you've published it, but it's not selling. So your book might not be a bestseller. That doesn't mean you have to just give up. Unless you're a prodigy and a freak of the writing world and get the world to fall in love with you and your book and buy your book in massive quantities, you are not alone in your first book not doing well. One thing you can do is learn from your first book and what did you do right with it? What did you do wrong with it? How can you improve on your marketing? What else could you have done differently, and what can you do differently in the next book? If you aren't willing to adapt and improve and grow as a writer and as an author and be willing to put the time and effort in, then why are you doing this in the first place? For the money? For the prestige? Just to be published? If you're looking to be known for your writing, if you're looking to have that ability to make money on your books, if you're wanting to be recognized, then if those are your answers, then you need to make sure that you put in the time, effort, and be willing to adapt and change as necessary. The writing and author world is a very unforgiving place and it is always changing. What works one week might not work the next, or it could work in a few weeks down the road once again. By being willing to adapt and by being willing to change, you can change the chances you have of you being able to be more successful. Another one is another set of eyes. This could be about having someone else read your work, such as a beta or alpha reader. A beta or alpha reader is there to read your story before you publish it to help you find mistakes within the story. They are not an editor, and I reiterate, they are not and should not be the editor being the first one to read your book. And the only time that they are helpful is they should help you find plot holes, things that aren't matching up from earlier things in the story, and to make sure the story sounds and reads well. By not having these, you can run the risk of your story having major plot holes and other issues that makes it difficult for the reader to enjoy, or possibility of the reader just not finishing your book at all. The next is your cover. I'll go more into depth about this in a later episode, but your cover should not be something you avoid having done the right way when first publishing. Yes, I understand. You want to see everything in print. I get that. I mentioned that earlier in the podcast. However, you have probably heard the saying, you should never judge a book by its cover. Well, guess what? Everyone judges books by their covers. It's the first thing the reader sees. If you are talented enough to have the skills to make your own awesome cover, I'm not saying you can't. Go for it. But for the majority of people who write, creating a book cover is something that will need to be hired out. And don't cheap out either. You get what you pay for. While I've only covered 6 things in this episode, and there are probably many, many more out there that authors should avoid when publishing, and especially when publishing for the first time, the thing is this: there are a number of things to avoid when first publishing. When in doubt, it never hurts to ask. Just be prepared for many different people to give you input as to what you should do, and wade through the advice with the will to succeed. And that is everything I have for this episode, and I do thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed my podcast, do let me know. You can go to my Facebook page, That Writer Guy Podcast, and give me a like or a follow. You can definitely let me know if you have ideas for podcast episodes. I'll be more than happy to take a look at them there. But outside of that, I hope that you'll join me on the next episode. And until then, keep the words flowing, the ideas going, and happy writing.